Dr. Michelle Burden, along with Dr. Lisa Burkhardt Worley and Renee Rollins. And welcome to Pop Talk, the show where you never know what topics might pop up. Where do you think we are in history? If you're a believer in Jesus, do you think he's coming back soon? Today, we're going to interview a well-known author and speaker who will provide some details about where we are on God's timeline. And Lisa has his introduction.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I'm very honored to introduce today's guest because he is one of my favorite Bible teachers whom I have learned so much from over the years. His name is Jimmy Evans. Jimmy Evans is a renowned pastor, Bible teacher, and best-selling author. He is the founder of Tipping Point Ministries and host of the highly acclaimed Tipping Point Show. Jimmy also leads the #1 faith-based platform on Substack, which reaches hundreds of thousands of users weekly. Through this platform, he shares insights on end times prophecy, world events, and offers believers hope, peace, and encouragement. Jimmy has authored over 55 books, amazing, I hope to get there one day, including Tipping Point, Where Are the Missing People, and the popular What's Next series. Jimmy lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with his wife, Karen. They've been married for more than 50 years, and they are the proud parents of 2 married children and grandparents to 5 grandchildren. We're so glad to have you on the show, even though you got a little lost coming in. You know, it's tough to get here, but that's okay. We were stressing out for you as we were giving you directions. And so we have so many things that we could talk to you about on this program. You are so well versed and you know a lot about many subjects, especially from the Bible, but we want to really focus on biblical prophecy today. And a lot of people do not believe in prophecy today. And so why do you think that is the case? And why do you think God gives us prophecy in the first place, Jimmy?
Well, it's sad. There are 216 chapters in the New Testament. In those 216 chapters, we're told about the return of Jesus 318 times, which means that 1 out of 30 verses in the New Testament talks about the return of Jesus. And in spite of that, many preachers don't preach about it. I don't know how you can, about 30% of the Bible is prophecy. And most of that has to do with the days that we're living in. And so this is the most prophesied about a period in human history. And the reason that God did that is it's the most difficult period of human history. Jesus said, unless those days had been cut short, no flesh would have survived. And so God is so good to give us prophecy because the Bible is the only book that tells us the future in advance. Yes. Dr. John Walvoord, who was the chancellor at Dallas Theological Seminary and a professor there, he found 1,000 prophecies in the Bible, 1,000 specific prophecies, and according to him, 500 of those have been fulfilled. Show me another book in the world that can tell the future in advance, that has told the future in advance. Mm-hmm. So it's really befuddling to me that so many people just don't understand Bible prophecy, because honestly, when you look at what's happening in the world today, how could you possibly contextualize it without Bible prophecy?
That's right.
It's just the world's gone crazy. Right. But when you understand Bible prophecy, you understand that Jesus is coming very soon. And so really what causes confusion for so many really causes excitement when you understand that Jesus said, when you see these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your head, your redemption is drawing near. So the best day of our lives is about to happen, and that's the day that Jesus comes.
Wow. I love that. We're all supporters of Israel here. Yeah. Every one of us love the Jewish people. And one of the things that you believe is that Israel is like God's super sign announcing the end times. Can you explain that, Jimmy? Yeah,
absolutely. So you can't have the end without Israel. And this is the importance of Isaiah 11. God says, again, for the second time, I'm going to regather the children of Israel from the 4 corners of the world and bring them back to the land of Israel and give it to them. And so the interesting thing there is he says for the second time. The first time, Israel's the only nation in the history of the world that's been dispossessed twice and come back. The first time they went to Babylon. They went to one nation. They came back from one nation. But he says, I'm going to bring them back the second time from the 4 corners of the world. And so that happened on May 14th of 1948. That was the super sign that began the end times. There are so many things that happen in the end times that are Israel-centric. Well, in fact, we were talking about anti-Semitism before. The last scene of this age is the whole world marches against Israel. Okay,
wow.
that's Armageddon.
Happening.
It was happening right now.
Yes.
So the Anti-Defamation League did a study recently on anti-Semitism. They studied 50,500 people from 103 nations. And one of the most, longitudinal type studies that had been done on anti-Semitism, they found that 47% of adults in the world have a significantly negative attitude about Jews. And they said it's a global crisis. And we were talking about it earlier. It's a global crisis. Now, this is the interesting thing. In Matthew 24, which is an end-time chapter, Jesus said to a group of Jewish men, "You'll be hated by all nations for my name's sake." Talking about the end times.
Yes.
And so anti-Semitism is one of the greatest signs of the end times. Again, you can't have the anti-Semitism that you have today without Israel existing. And the interesting thing about the anti-Semitism today, which is it's satanically supernatural, October 7th, 2023, 1,200 Jews are killed, 251 taken hostage, and the world turns toward those who did it and against those it was done to.
Which has happened
It's the
as
most
well.
satanic thing I've ever
Yes.
seen. You can't, how do you understand that?
Especially when you hear the stories about what happened on October 7th.
yeah,
I've
my
heard so
God.
many stories, there's videos out.
Yeah.
How can you support Hamas when they did such evil to the Jewish people?
And now
on
they're
that day?
denying
Yeah.
it too,
Right.
that the event even took place.
I
mean,
saw
it's-
45 minutes of the raw footage. I went to the Israeli embassy in Jerusalem, and I saw 45 minutes of the raw footage of October 7th. It was just the most brutal murders you can possibly comprehend. 45 minutes, and they were worshiping and praising Allah the entire day. It was worship service. They were laughing, they were worshiping, and everything. And the world turned toward them and against Israel. And you're saying, why? I mean, how can that happen?
It's upside down.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so it's just, this is what the Bible said would happen. And so when you look, just geopolitically at what the Bible said 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, it's all exactly the way the Bible said. It says there's going to be a Gog and Magog war, Russia, Iran, Turkey, Sudan, Libya, all these countries, they're all together right now. They hate Israel. And they're all exactly where the Bible said they would be. And so Israel is surrounded by enemies, just the way the Bible said they would be. It's just this, Israel is, if they've ever needed a friend, they need one now. And when Genesis 12 says, "I'll bless those who bless you and I'll curse those who curse you," that's exactly what it means. And you look at any nation that's ever come against Israel, they either don't exist or they're no longer a superpower.
Right.
Egypt, Babylon, Rome, whatever it might be. And so I believe that this is the most crucial time in history for people to support the nation of Israel.
Amen. And we try to do that through our documentaries to fight anti-Semitism, award-winning, but I think God's blessed them, right?
Yeah.
Because we're supporting his the chosen ones, his beloved people. Yeah.
Talking about all these different world events, your book, Tipping Point, was written before the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th of 2023. And now the Houthis in the north have been attacking. And then a couple of their missiles have even broken through the Iron Dome recently. And then we've had the fires that they've set, by arsonists in the land, creating wildfire scenarios. So how does all of this terrorism in Israel play into biblical prophecy?
Yeah, well, they're surrounded. Psalm 83, it's a prayer of Asaph, but it's talking about this war where they're just surrounded by all their enemies, immediate neighbors there. And so it's a part of the fulfillment of that. It's also a part of the fulfillment of the Gog and Magog war. Gog and Magog is it's a ring outside of the immediate neighbors. But it says there, Zephaniah 2 is a fascinating chapter there where it actually talks about Gaza. Wow. And it talks about Gaza being ultimately destroyed and Israel then re-inhabiting Gaza and things like that. It's all a part of Bible prophecy. You're hated by your neighbors. You're hated by all nations. Jesus said there would be perplexity, there would be distress of nations with perplexity. And perplexity means there's just no answers. You just can't find an answer to any of this. The Houthis hide in the mountains. They fire their missiles off the back of trucks. By the time the missile hit, the truck's gone. You can't possibly find them. You can hit their ports. You can hit, their infrastructure. But the actual damage that's being done is by a bunch of, thugs out in the middle of nowhere that they can't catch. Yeah, and so it's just the craziest thing, whether you're looking at like Gaza or you're looking at Hezbollah or you're looking at all these things, or Iran. And right now, Iran is, our Defense Department, the Pentagon said this week, Iran is within a week of getting nuclear material.
Wow.
And Israel's ready to bomb them, but the Trump administration is saying don't. and they're negotiating. We've been negotiating with them for decades.
Yes.
They're masters at just dragging it out and wanting you to think that you're about to make a deal, then you don't make a deal. Now, I say this to President Trump because I love President Trump for many reasons. He's used to negotiating with people motivated by greed, not genocide.
Yes.
And so
It's
it's hard to understand the minds of these people, because Iran is not Iran. It is the Islamic Republic of Iran. It is an Islamic nation vowed to the destruction of Israel. They exist. They're like Hamas. They exist for the destruction of Israel. They believe that Allah has called them to destroy. This is their eschatology. They have their own end times theology. They believe that Allah has called them to destroy Israel and usher in the end times and the return of the hidden imam. And I think the only thing in that neighborhood, the only thing they understand is a punch in the nose.
Wow.
And if you don't show them some strength, if you don't show them some resolve, they'll never respect you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Michelle and I just went to Washington, D.C., and we were meeting with lawmakers up there for an Israel Advocacy Day, and we were talking to them and telling them to disarm Iran. I mean, that was one of our points, our talking points. Right. And so, and then there's all this other stuff going on where Israel's talking about taking over Gaza and maybe making that part, which is really part of the land that was promised to them by God.
Absolutely.
So how does this kind of thing play into end times prophecy?
Well, hopefully Zephaniah 2 will be fulfilled in Gaza.
Yeah.
Israel right now, they say, has taken 77% of Gaza back, that they control it. The Palestinians and Hamas, they're very popular in that area of the world. Now, when I say popular, no one wants them, though. Notice that.
Right.
When they say, hey, would you take the Palestinians? They say, no, thanks.
Jordan doesn't want them.
Okay.
No.
Doors closed.
So it's just what we're seeing today is Bible prophecy coming true. And so the temple there's preparations for the temple to be rebuilt, which is very important. The Temple Institute, we went to the Temple Institute a couple of years ago when we were in Israel. They said these are not replicas, these are all kosher, and these will be used in the third temple. They have the menorah up in the Jewish quarter there where they're on display. They're ready to rebuild the temple. They have the red heifers, and 2 are supposedly kosher and ready to be sacrificed. It's just an amazing day that we're living in. What's happening with Israel is the most important thing when you're looking at the return of Jesus. Let me say, what's happening to Israel is horrific. It's the fires, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, all these things. It's just horrific, and regardless of what they do, they're cursed. And this is exactly what the Bible said would happen. They'll be hated.
I'm just wondering if we'll ever be able to go back as tourists. I mean, Michelle and I went on a trip in 2023, right? I mean, do you think it's ever going to settle down at all, or no?
I think that they'll be, especially with President Trump being in office, because I don't think there's going to be any major calamity. I think people would be too afraid to attack Israel directly with the United States. We have all kinds of military assets all through that region. I don't think that'd be a problem. And Israel, when you're there, you feel safe.
You do.
That's true.
Karen, my wife, and my assistant Shelley we were on a tour there, like I said, a few years ago, and they said, hey, we were at our hotel, and they said, we want to walk down there to that shopping area. And they asked our tour guide, they said, are we safe? He said, this isn't the United States. You're safe here.
Good. I like
it was like, okay.
Well, you feel safe when you see those the IDF soldiers in the hotels, and all armed with all their weapons.
I sure hope that they're able to have tours openly again, because it's just such a life-changing experience.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go. I want to go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But it's great. Yeah.
We were talking about how our Pearls of Promise ministry does the anti-Semitism documentaries to help fight that. And I just wanted to go back to that for a moment, because it's just skyrocketed. Anti-Semitism across the world and in the United States has skyrocketed. Do you think that this supports and plays into the evidence that, we're living in the last days and that Jesus is returning?
Yeah, I just think that to me, it's the most tangible of all the signs is among Christians. And so it's not just among non-Christians, it's among Christians. Jesus, again, when Matthew 24, he said, because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold. Well, the problem with that scripture is he says, because lawlessness is increased, most people's agape will grow cold. Mm-hmm. That's a Christian word. And so agape love is God's unique type of love for humanity. So the inference there is he's talking to Christians. He's talking about Christians. Because lawlessness is increased, rebellion against the Word of God, most Christians' love will grow cold. Well, I believe some of that has to do with Israel.
Yes.
Replacement theology is rampant in the church today.
Yes.
And you have Christians with major attitudes against Israel. And I just want to say to them, mess with any group in the world, just don't mess with them.
That's right.
Because, if you bless them, you'll be blessed. If you curse them, you'll be cursed. It doesn't matter who you are. And it's amazing to me. I had one of my relatives come about a month ago, and they said, do you understand how much stuff is on social media by Christians against Israel right now? And they said, young people, old people, it's everywhere. And my response to it is, it's just satanic.
It is satanic.
It's just satanic. And I'm not saying those people are going to hell. I'm just saying, I just don't think you get the program. See, a Jew cannot be a believer without receiving Jesus as their Messiah, okay? And so all of the early church started out as Jews, okay? But there are many Jews that didn't believe, okay? But they're special by covenant. Whether they're a believer or not a believer, God made an everlasting covenant with Abraham.
Yes.
Israel is a land, and it's a people. Israel's a piece of land in the Middle East. Joel 3, God says, in those days and at that same time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I'll enter into judgment with the nations in the valley of Jehoshaphat on behalf of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they've scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land. Okay, that's an end time prophecy. When I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I'm going to enter into judgment with the nations. That's Armageddon, okay?
Yes.
Because you've scattered my people around the world, and you've divided up my land. Look what's happening right now. They've divided up, we have divided up the land of Israel, but God calls it His land. So God made a covenant with the land of Israel and the people of Israel. And so those two things. So Israel, they're special by covenant. And even though they're going to go through a horrific time during the tribulation, the good news is, according to Zechariah 13 and also Romans 11, they're all going to get saved in one day. The nation of Israel, it's a happy ending.
Amazing.
It's a tough story, but it's a happy ending.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I love that. Well, biblical prophecy says that the Jews in Israel will be rebuilding the temple in the last days, and right now the Dome of the Rock is on the Temple Mount. So how, when, and where do you propose the temple is going to be built?
So where the Dome of the Rock sits now, people say to me all the time, they say, well, Jimmy, do you think the Dome of the Rock is in the way? Does it have to be moved? Does something have to happen? And here's my answer. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the Jews think.
Right,
When the time comes, they're not going to call me. And they believe the Dome of the Rock is in the way. They believe that the Temple Institute. Yeah. Okay, they believe the Dome of the Rock is a problem. Okay, so the Antichrist is going to confirm a covenant with Israel according to Daniel chapter 9. I believe personally that agreement is going to give them the right to rebuild their temple. Okay, wow. There's that area north. If you've been to the Temple Mount, there's the area north of the Dome of the Rock that they have room to build, not the grand temple, but just the naos, the holy of holy areas there. So Revelation 11 talks about measuring that. Then Revelation 11 talks about the two witnesses. Okay, a lot of people believe that's Moses and Elijah. Well, they're bulletproof. See, they can take the Dome of the Rock and just throw it off the edge of the cliff. The two witnesses, it says, if anyone tries to kill them, they'll be killed.
Yeah.
If anyone tries to kill them, they're going to be killed in like manner. They can call down fire from heaven. All over the world, they can cause plagues to happen all over the world. And it says when they are killed 3.5 years later by the Antichrist, they're so hated, people send gifts to one another. Let me tell you a real fascinating scripture, by the way. This is very fascinating. So in Revelation 11, it says when the two witnesses are murdered by the Antichrist, this is how it's stated in Revelation 11. The inhabitants of the earth gloat over them. Okay. The inhabitants of the earth. Okay, wait. That was written 1,900 years ago. Think of the technology 1,900 years ago. Okay.
Right.
How does every single person on earth watch the same thing at the same time?
Satellite TV.
No, better than that. 6.92 billion people in the world right now have a smartphone. Not a cell phone, a smartphone.
Yes.
Every adult on earth today has a personal viewing device. For the first time in human history, Revelation 11 can happen. Because we can the inhabitants of the earth, and it says they gloat over them. They just sit there and watch it happen and say, I hate you guys. So the two witnesses, once they're on the Temple Mount, they can just literally tear the Dome of the Rock down and throw it over the cliff. So, because they're bulletproof. Now, the other thing is, you say, why are they so hated? They're protecting the people, sacrificing the animals.
Right.
Think of what PETA would do today if CNN was showing all the animal sacrifices taking place. Once they rebuild that temple, they're going to start killing animals.
Yeah.
That's what they do up there.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Can you imagine what's going to happen? The world's going to go berserk.
Yes.
Then the two witnesses are up there say, no. You better be quiet down there. We're about to strike you dead. And they're preaching the gospel. They're doing signs and wonders. They're protecting the temple builders and the people doing the sacrifices. And when the Antichrist kills them 3.5 years later, the world just goes crazy. But they're resurrected 3 days later. So it's such a fascinating story, but it's all going to happen.
I know it is. And while we're talking about technology, let's touch on artificial intelligence.
Right.
I've been afraid of AI. I'm going to admit it. I've admitted it on the show before, but now I'm starting to use it a little bit.
Yeah.
But how does that play into the Antichrist and his appearance? And does this all work together?
Well, let me say, Lisa, too, because I don't believe there's anything wrong with using artificial intelligence. It's just technology.
Right.
I think it is going. I said in 2023, when it was commercially available, it is announcing the arrival of the Antichrist.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason is because the capacity it has to deceive on a mass level. This is the number one warning that Elon Musk, that Larry Page, that Sam Altman, that all of these guys that originally designed a lot of this, that's their number one concern, is its ability to deceive on a mass level. So in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, it says about the Antichrist, it says his coming is in according with the activity of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonder, with all unrighteous deception, with, if possible, even to deceive the elect. Okay, so the word power there means supernatural power. AI is supernatural. It's not natural. It thinks 100,000 times faster than us. It's getting faster and smarter all the time. And so they asked Elon Musk, he was being interviewed by Tucker Carlson about AI, and he kept talking about the dangers of AI, the dangers of AI. And finally, Tucker stopped him and said, wait, what are you talking about? He said, mass deception. He said, when AI begins to learn to communicate with humans, it will begin to write social media that no one knows is AI. And it can convince the whole world of anything it wants to convince.
It's already tough. On YouTube, I'm like, is that real or is that not real?
Yeah.
I'm already asking that.
Absolutely. Well, so understand this. Technology is neutral. In the hands of good guys, it's good. In the hands of bad guys, it's bad. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad guys in the world. And the Antichrist is going to be the worst of the worst. And so this is going to be a tool. I believe the Antichrist will be a massive tool that will give him the supernatural ability to deceive. You have to remember, Satan is not omnipotent. He's not omniscient. He needs help. And so the AI will give him the help he needs to deceive humanity.
Wow. Unbelievable.
You know, the Bible talks about a 7-year tribulation, and we know there are several schools of thought about that that will impact Christians. I know people who think we're going to go all the way through the tribulation.
Right.
I know some people that think, nope, we're just mid-tribulation. We're going to go there, and then the church is going to be raptured. But you believe, as I do, that it is a pre-tribulation rapture for us. Can you explain that, Jimmy? Because I know it's going to give hope to a lot of people.
I feel very, very strongly. Let me say this, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I've studied Bible prophecy for 50 years. Okay? And so it is something, and I was post-trib for 20 years. So I believe for 20 years, I believed that Jesus would come at the end, that we would go through the tribulation. And I'm saying that because I wasn't born pre-trib. I could no longer support that theologically. The more I read and the more I studied, the more I realized it just wasn't supported in Scripture. And so the pre-trib rapture, Jesus in Matthew 24 says the coming of the Son of Man will be like the days of Noah before the flood.
Right.
Before the flood. In Luke 17, they ask him specifically, when you're coming. He said, it'll be like the days of Noah. It'd be like the day that Noah got on the boat and then the flood came and destroyed them all. It will be like the day that Lot went out of Sodom and Gomorrah. Then the disaster came and destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. The day he went out. The angels that came and got Lot and his family, they said, we can't judge this place till you're gone.
Right.
Okay. And so Jesus said it'll be like that. Buying, selling, marrying, giving in marriage, planting, building. Think about this just a minute. Buying, selling, marrying, giving in marriage, planting, building. That all speaks of hope for the future. Why are you getting married? I have hope for the future. Why are you building a house? I have hope for the future. Why are you planting a crop? I have hope for the future. at the end of the tribulation, half of humanity's dead. The earth is a smoldering ruin. It's been hit by a massive meteor, a massive asteroid. Is all these, and you've had all the judgments of God. You've had the Antichrist. There's no, at the end, you're attending funerals, not weddings. It's all funerals.
Yeah.
And so even in mid-trib, the seal judgments of Revelation 6 are the first half of the tribulation. In one judgment, a quarter of humanity dies. The rider on the pale horse, a quarter of humanity dies. One judgment. In 3 judgments in Revelation 9, a third of humanity dies. That's another judgment. So you're just not talking, the tribulation is called, in Revelation 6, the wrath of the Lamb. It's not judgment, it's wrath. Yep. So there are going to be a lot of people saved during the tribulation. That's the good news. But it is going to be the most horrific time. Why would Jesus take his bride through that?
Yeah.
Would you want to send your bride to Gaza right before you marry her? You know,
Right.
Yeah.
No. We're leaving. We're going to the marriage supper of the Lamb.
And I was going to say the Bible also talks about birth pangs, and so I think it's going to be bad. I mean, before the rapture comes, but it won't be the tribulation. It's just birth pangs. It's like when we had birth pangs, it hurt, right? It hurt. But the baby was joy.
Women understand that.
Yes, we get that.
Birth pains get worse and they get closer together.
Yes.
And that's when you know something's about to be birthed. And that's why I believe we're living at the end of the end times. Yep. The birth pains are intense. They're getting more intense. And they're getting closer together.
Thank you so much. We're just so appreciative of the vast knowledge that you've shared, Jimmy, and we've learned so much just sitting here with you. We could have gone on all day, couldn't we have? I mean, It was an incredible interview. Thank you so much.
And thank you.
We all agree that Jesus is coming back soon. I'm a pre-trib girl. I was mid-trib for a while, but then I just moved back to pre-trib. I just think you're right. I mean, I think the Bible shows evidence of that. And
thank you so much for what you do. You guys are making such a big difference in what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we're trying. So Jimmy Evans' book that we were talking about today is called Tipping Point, The End is Here. But he's written many books that will enhance your spiritual journey, so you need to check out his website at endtimes.substack.com or subscribe to his YouTube channel at Jimmy Evans. I know you're going to gain a lot of insight from his messages.
And we hope you will follow Pearls of Promise on social media. We're on Facebook at Pearls of Promise Ministries, and we're present on Instagram at pop_ministries, and we're on X at Pop Talk Media and at Pearls of Promise. Check out all of our award-winning documentaries and past Pop Talk shows on our YouTube channel at Pearls of Promise Ministries.
And thanks to our fantastic production studio, Grace Point Media. For all of your media needs, go to gracepoint.media. We're also grateful for all of our 25 television and radio platforms.
So that is Pop Talk for today. We're just ordinary girls
who God turned into pearls. Have a great week.